Yeah, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Abhishek Jain, and I'm pleased to invite you all to the Career in Forensic Linguistics series by Planty. In today's session, we will be covering an introductory session on pursuing a career in forensic linguistics. Towards the end of this session, we will also be having a Q&A segment, for which I would request you all to put your questions in the live chat box. Today, we're very fortunate to have with us Professor Dr. Prasannanshu, a professor at National Law University Delhi. He teaches courses of English, professional communication skills for lawyers, and also forensic linguistics. He's an Erasmus Mundus Scholar of the European Union, a visiting fellow of the British Academy, and a fellow of the Institute for the Advanced Studies in the Humanities. He's also an established author and a poet and has numerous publications to his name. At National Law University Delhi, he is also the executive director of the Center for Linguistic Justice and Endangered Languages and has conducted and been a part of multiple conferences in this regard. In this session, Professor Prasannanshu will be speaking in detail on who should consider a career in forensic linguistics, how one can establish themselves in this field, and the scope and prospects for such a career post law school. I would now like to hand it over to Sir to begin this session.
Good morning and thank you very much. I think you want to know something about forensic linguistics. So it is a coinage, this expression is a coinage, and it is made up of two words, forensic and linguistics. Linguistics is a scientific study of language, and forensic has something to do with law enforcement, delivery of justice, investigation. So that is forensic. The concept of forensic is a bit vast, and it is still a developing field, so the concept is growing. Some people, some authors want to include even legal education into this field. Others would like to restrict it within forensic science, but the general purport of this field, I think I have mentioned. So where we use the knowledge of language to investigate crime which has been committed or where there is a potential or threat of such a crime. So this is forensic linguistics in brief. Forensic linguistics is an emerging field. We don't have many courses yet in this field. When something is emerging, something is not fully developed, and when it is unknown, there are both challenges and opportunities inherent in such a situation. The challenges are that you don't have many places to study it. Just one or two centers are there in India, although I have personally proposed it to Forensic Science Lab and other institutions, but I think it takes time to implement. And the opportunity hidden within this is that people who are interested in the field can contribute towards the growth of this field, development of this field. They can set the directions. And also, there are very few people who are practicing forensic linguistics. So, as I am going to mention soon, the scope is vast and very few people are there in the field. And they are also from basically extended fields. Maybe they have not studied it in a scientific, systematic, formal way. And these people are using their skills developed by practice. So there are three things which I have mentioned. One is you can contribute to the growth of the academic field by research and by teaching. Second, you can apply these principles in the courtroom where admissible, and you can make a good career also out of this. Although in new fields, there is always a challenge. Forensic linguistics has a very vast scope of application, and with changing technology, emerging trends, this is becoming more and more important. All of you must have heard about forensic science, where science is applied for detection of crime, for generating evidence, and for aiding the process of justice. And we have many media representations of it. For example, the Hindi serial, the famous in Hindi serial, many of you might have watched. CIDs there. In English, there are numerous such movies, serials, in all languages, I think. And it is I am very certain that everyone must have been exposed to the concept by now via this electronic media and also in the print. In books, novels, stories, such depictions are there, and especially in the genre of crime writing. So, what you have witnessed is like examination of documents where writing is there. That is as close as we get to forensic linguistics. It may be included within forensic linguistics, but again, a matter of definition. So when we are talking of language, we are specifically focusing on the abstract aspect of language. And this is becoming more important because in good old days, a few decades ago, exclusively all recorded writing was on paper, although we had tape recorders and video facility also. So, but the major part of linguistic material available to an expert for examination was written language on pieces of paper in the form of books, in the form of diaries, in the form of documents which were signed or not signed. And the range was great as it is today also. We had suicide notes, we had threats, we had authorship disputes, especially including plagiarism. So all these things, just to mention a very few, were covered under by document experts who were also within the field of forensic science. But now the situation is changing a bit. The situation is that documents are being replaced by virtual documents, which are not on paper, which are not visible, which are not there, which are not physical, like sending an email, SMS, WhatsApp, and you have dozens of popular platforms on which messages are sent. I am talking of only popular. Potentially, there are thousands. So, in all these platforms, we are using language. Not only in sending messages, whatever we do in language. All human activities are practically mediated via language, because if we look at the level of consciousness, consciousness is translated into thoughts primarily, majorly, I won't say exclusively, but in a very major way by language. And thoughts are the blueprint of executing the plans what that are dictated by our consciousness. So whatever we wish, whether it is cooperation with someone else, whether we are thinking of something, it is done in language. Even in while sleeping, in dreams, we more often than not use language. So it is such a pervasive thing. So all human activities, as a corollary, must be coded, influenced, and expressed by language. That is why crime is no exception. This is the broader perspective. So when some wrong is to be done, it is essentially between at least two people, the victim and the wrongdoer. At least two people are there, and sometimes many more people are involved. For example, there is collaboration, collusion for committing some wrong, and sometimes the recipients of this wrong may be a large number of people. And this is becoming more and more possible because of the internet, the cyberspace. So one dimension of these crimes are cyber crimes. So this is in brief the scope of application. Another important thing that we can look at is the legal perspectives, like which evidence is admissible. So I hope all our viewers know that any expert evidence is not binding on the court, and this is no exception. The court may admit, the court may not admit such an evidence, because there is a big element of subjectivity, and it may lead to injustice if evidence is followed blindly. And that is why a human judge is essential there for corroborating the evidence with all other facts of the matter. So if you are from the field of law, it will be really good. It can be a great exploration and extension of your skills if you make yourselves aware of forensic linguistics. We always have lived in a world of language as human beings, especially during the last 80 or 90,000 years of our species. And we have been using this tool to the extent that it has become an integral and characteristic part of our species. So language is everywhere around us. Making ourselves aware of language can help us in two ways. One is in the profession of law, as it is a profession of letters, and secondly, in looking at different aspects of crime. One prominent aspect is the written documents, as I have already mentioned, and the second aspect may be the spoken language, because recording of sound waves has become so convenient, pervasive, and even invasive these days that it is easily available. Everyone, or a vast majority of people in all countries, have cell phones. Practically every simple cell phone has a recording feature or a feature to transmit. That is essentially the definition of a phone, cell phone, or any type of phone. Transmit voice messages, which may be recorded at the other end or in between by tapping, legally or illegally. So that is one form of availability, recording on the site of speech production, and second possibility is recording it remotely within the knowledge of the producer of language, speech, sounds, or without their knowledge. It is another vast field where forensic linguistics can enter, which is, I think, less explored, the right to privacy and who can record, what can be recorded, what can be admissible in the courts as evidence, because privacy is also a very fundamental right which is usually not specified amongst the fundamental rights. Although it may be implied, there may be laws, there may be acts about it, but it needs, and I feel confident with time, it will be promoted to the level of a fundamental right. But until then, perhaps within the right to life, it may be dignity, life, etc., it will be covered. So, if we look at the first aspect, that is language in the written form. So, the scenario nowadays is that paper is often not available. When paper is available, then physical, chemical, and other sorts of examination of the material can be done, like looking at the texture of the paper. You can examine it under different types of microscopes, looking at the chemical composition of the paper, looking at the composition of the ink, its chemical nature, and also looking at the pressure, slope, angle of writing, the style of writing, pattern of writing, that can be looked into, and one can arrive at certain conclusions. But if someone sends an electronic message on Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, Telegram, SMS, email, and many more, then all these things ab initio are out of question. Although that is the default position, sometimes a picture of the document is sent. Then some of these features may remain. That is a correction, but still, I think that is unusual that a picture of the document is sent. There was a very famous case of a suicide note recently of Mahant ji, and this suicide note was very special because it was not written in a single go, and the media covered it in a way that everything appeared to hinge on the suicide note. The circumstances were confusing, as they often are, and I am not commenting on the media that they did the right thing or the wrong thing. I am just stating a fact. So there was a great role of forensic linguistics. I think that the law enforcement agencies should consider forensic linguistic evidence also for arriving at conclusions. There were several theories doing the rounds. One was that the suicide note was not written by the Mahant, it was written by someone else. Now, within someone else, there were suspicions and allegations about different people. One was a disciple of the Mahantji himself. and that disciple was named in the suicide note. So everything hinged upon the genuineness of the note. Now, this note had different inks, different slight differences in writing. So one of the disputes was that it is written by multiple people. Then that would be self-defeating as evidence, because suicide note by definition, by its very concept, can be written by only a single person, especially if it is signed and it is not dictated and there is no proof that it was dictated. And most of the people in the media were of the opinion that it was not a genuine suicide note. Now, I mentioned some of the parameters, very basic peripheral ones. Now, the question actually was difficult to solve, and the role of forensic science is not denied in it. Document examination, handwriting examination, examination of ink and paper. I think all of these things are important, and also the other forensic investigations and police investigation is also very important. But one thing which is underrepresented is the language, the way it is written. I looked at it cursorily, I would say, because I was not giving my opinion to an investigating agency. So what appeared to me was a particular pattern in the language. I am just mentioning one point, for example, here. And that pattern showed that the language was not normal, and it could be seen all across the document, which was headed by different dates. And this abnormality looked like some language disability, because the person in question was a learned person, and for being learned, it is not oxymoronic that you are not able to write properly. So this person appeared to have, whoever the author was, this person appeared to have this language disability. I am just mentioning one of the points. So like this, we look at language samples. Within language, there are several, within the study of language, there are several subdivisions. We look at morphology, syntax, semantics, discourse, dialectology, social-linguistic aspects, etc., etc. All these things can give us an impression about, not conclusive evidence, of course, in most of the cases, but it can be a great pointer about the place or region or linguistic community of the speaker. And this may differ within a state or a city also. I can give you the example of Delhi. Within Delhi, it is known that we have several major languages: Hindi, English, Urdu, Punjabi, but most of the people are able to speak Hindi. But that Hindi is also not same. Then the combination of these other languages, the knowledge of these languages also plays an important role in influencing whichever language you are using, your educational level, sometimes gender, and sometimes many other things, religion. Many aspects can be deciphered by examining systematically the patterns of the language used. So this is in brief what I can tell you about forensic linguistics and its applications. And I have already mentioned what are the potentials of exploring it as a part of your profession or as a main profession. But if you want to go for forensic linguistics, I think the future is certainly bright, and this is also an opportunity because you will be one of the founders, at least in this country, of this field. And the important things that you need to study, maybe number one, no study other than what you are doing, your graduation or post graduation. But then you have to be self educated. You have to you have to look at this field, read all the literature possible that you can get hold of, and also exposing yourself to practical experiments and actual cases. Second is that you study linguistics. You can do an MA in linguistics in Delhi University and JNU. You would get an idea of the structure of language studies, some of which I just mentioned briefly. And another important field obviously is law, how to apply it in the field of law. And another field can be forensic science or any of the sciences. So actually, since the field is new, you may start from any direction, from any field, any knowledge, and you can start adding, contributing to this field. I have designed syllabi for forensic linguistics. I have been delivering lectures to popularize it. I have also tried to interact with the media so that many people come to know about it. As many people as possible are able to know about it. So in this course, I have tried to personally include different dimensions and practical aspects of dealing with the matters where forensic linguistics is important. I hope more institutions take it up, more lectures are organized by experts, and more events like conferences, publications are produced in India so that we are able to utilize the potential. We really have good human resources in academics in various fields, and there are a lot of innovative people in our country who can extend their existing knowledge or who can specialize in this field. I see a progression. The first part for establishing any field is that many people start working, they become interested, they start reading about it, they start reading something equivalent to science fiction on the field. Someone has to write it also, and this will create awareness. And there should be academic activism or activity in the form of publications, conferences, courses, lectures, PhDs, other research, and slowly syllabi can be formulated at this point and courses can be proposed and offered. So this is one end, the academic end, and the other end is the courts also have to be sensitized, familiarized with the concept. And the third aspect will be the law itself, um, whether it is precedent based, whether it is in the form of an act or amendment in some act, to include explicitly forensic linguistics as admissible evidence in with whatever conditions in suitable cases. So once we have these requirements, and why I'm mentioning all this, because our viewers can associate themselves at any of these stages or any of these aspects and help in tapping the potential of this vast field in their careers or as hobbies or as intellectual challenges.
Thanks a lot for that, sir. I think that was a very, very detailed session on the introduction to forensic linguistics and also what exactly a career in this field would look like. Just moving on from there, sir, we had I think we had a couple of questions that we just wanted to ask you. So I think the first question that we wanted to ask you was, so you spoke about the importance of forensic linguistics and also about how law is a very important field there. We wanted to understand that, do you think that there is any advantage as such that a lawyer might have if they pursue forensic linguistics and try to become a forensic linguist?
Thank you. That's a good question. Certainly, it's very obvious. So, like students of law will be benefited, and even practicing lawyers will be benefited because law is a learned field. And learned field does not mean that you are given a capsule of knowledge which you swallow and go to the field and practice happily ever after. A learned field like medicine or practically all professions mean that you have to keep updating yourself, you have to keep the explorer, the inquirer alive within you. And now we are aware that this field is an emerging field and it has a great potential, especially because it may not be very costly to use it always. It requires some basic skills. And as I said, that some programs, if there is sufficient awareness amongst people, there is sufficient demand, some courses can be floated because many universities, departments, and institutes will be interested once they get people interested in it. And reciprocally, there is a responsibility of all academic institutions, universities, departments, etc., to popularize and keep exploring different academic fields, including this field. So, I would also take this opportunity to give a message to the departments and institutes of law, of linguistics, of language studies, and many more. Practically all other institutions can include innovative courses that will only enrich the existing academic programs and the academic program environment of the country.
Thanks a lot for that, sir. I think as a follow-up to this question, sir, as an Indian law student or as an Indian legal professional who's just probably completed law school or an LLB degree, what do you think could be the next step in terms of higher education that a student could do in India or outside India if they're trying to make themselves a career in the field of forensic linguistics?
Say some programs are being offered, especially in India. I have mentioned I am aware of one or two programs. One is in National Law University Delhi, but at the moment it is for the students of existing students of the university, but it can be extended. Secondly, you have especially asked about after your LLB. So, as research, as a dissertation, as a paper in LLM, you can take it. And for PhD, certainly, practically all institutions, not practically, theoretically, all institutions should be able to offer it. The only thing is if some institutions show inflexibility, lack of imagination, or rigidity in their approach, only then they will deny going out of very rigid fields of language study or law or literature, because it can be studied from practically all aspects. Whichever subject you are studying, whether you are studying physics, whether you are studying economics, whether you are studying culture, whatever you are studying, literature of any type, or you are studying management, I think you can associate your research with forensic linguistics. You can do a PhD with a topic that has an aspect of forensic linguistics. And if you have already done your PhD, in that case also you can enrich your fields of exploration by adding forensic linguistics to that.
Thank you so much for that. Yes, sir. So I think with that, I probably come to the last question that I have for today's session. And this is, I think, more about what a student could do during law school, actually. So you mentioned that, for instance, there is a course at NLU Delhi for students who are currently enrolled in the LLB program. Apart from this course, so do you think that there's any kind of an internship or any other place that a student could work at if they were to get some kind of exposure for forensic linguistics while they're still studying or pursuing their LLB degree?
Certainly, but given the newness of this field, you have to be proactive. Forensic science laboratories are there in every state, and also in Delhi we have, and there are there are organizations like cyber security, for cyber security, for patents, trademarks, and you have advocates, senior advocates, law firms. I think all these things, in addition to individual professors who are interested in taking up this field of research. And in the previous question, you had asked about the possibilities in other countries, if I remember well. So certainly in US, they're doing a lot of work, and in several countries where um, perhaps prosperity and a very rigorous academic environment is there, you have courses, you have more possibilities, more awareness that also you can explore.
Thanks a lot for that, sir. I think with that, I come to the end of my list of questions, and I think with that, also the session itself. So I would just like to take this opportunity on behalf of Team Planty to thank you for just taking the time out for this wonderful session, sir.
Thank you very much.